this video, I'm going to be completing the skirt part of the Beard Girl dress. And the first thing is I printed my pieces and taped together the pieces that wouldn't fit in the page, because I had to print them on 8.5 by 11 paper because that's all I had. And then for this part, this gets printed here. This is going to be the lace for the inner skirt and the lace for the outer skirt, or the ruffle I should say. So these are going to be two pieces. This piece is going to be the inner skirt. It's quite short. I might make it a little bit longer. Maybe not. Well, for this video, I'm going to make it the same length as the skirt here, since I'm making it for the video on the actual pattern without making any changes. So this little circle here indicates that this should be placed on the fold of the fabric. So this will be one piece placed on the fold of the fabric. And for the lace pieces, I'm just going to cut one of each. And for the skirt, 2. And then for the waistband, 2 pieces as well. One for the actual waistband and one for the lining. So for my cutting layout, I folded the fabric this way, and the skirt is going to be on the fold of the fabric to make one piece and 2 pieces of this part. And then I'll do this one on this length of the fabric parallel to the selvage. So I ended up deciding to cut both ruffles off grain. And this one is going to be on the fold, and this one doesn't have to be on the fold. So, and I only had a yard of fabric, so I recommend that if you want to do the ruffles on the grain, which it doesn't really matter, get like 1.5 yards of fabric. But like I said, this is just a ruffle, so it's not going to affect the fit. Now that all my pieces are cut, the next step is to mark all the notches. In this case, sometimes I mark them with a snip, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use my heat erasable and mark all the notches. Those are the notches, the straight lines, the short straight lines. So when I'm doing my markings along the ruffle part, I make nice long lines because they're gonna get buried in the ruffles, and it's hard to find them if you don't make them nice and long. And I probably should have used a lighter color, but this will work. So everything is marked. And the first thing that I will start with is making all my gathering stitches. For these very long pieces, I definitely am making 2 rows of gathering stitches for everything. And the skirt part, the gathers, the inner and the outer skirts have to be gathered together. So I'm gonna leave that for last. I'm gonna do the gathering stitches first on the ruffles. Okay, so now I've done the gathering stitches on all the ruffles. But before I gather them, I'm going to do the hem. So just a little fold, and then fold it over one time again, and then hem it. So this is what I'll have once my ruffle is pinned to the skirt. And now I'm going to also pin the ruffle to this part of the skirt on both sides, on either side. So the curve edge goes to the front, and then I'll be pinning it using my marks. I get a little confused here. So right sides to right sides, pin them to these marks and the mark on the ruffle, and then gather the same way as the skirt. Then we're gonna sew along and do the same thing for the outer skirt, and serge along there and serge along this once it's put together and ruffled. I attach the ruffles and serge them. And then the next step is to do the top stitching along this side and along here on the skirt on the overskirt, and then on the underskirt, top stitching along this area. And by top stitching, you fold the seam over towards this top here, and then stitch it across like that, so it stays nice and flat. Top stitching is done on all skirt pieces. Oops, I still have to do this one. And then after the top stitch is completed on everything, the next step is going to be to serge along here. So along here on the back. So now that the back closing is serged, I'm going to put this two skirts together. The outer skirt is the longer one, or the curved one. And for this end, I'm going to match my ends like this, because this is going to overlap here, the closing. So I'm going to pin together the top skirt and the underskirt. And the centers are not overlapping. They look like they overlap here on the picture. So what I'll do is I'm going to put it right to the center there. And this one right to the center as well. When I see what I did, it was that I'm trying to match my ruffle here, and this is the part that I should be matching, because this is all going to be caught together. So just as long as they match in the middle. And then I'm going to do a gathering stitch all the way across, catching both skirts together. Actually, I'm going to do 2 rows of gathering stitches. I have the 2 layers attached together with the gathering stitches, and now time to work on the waistband. So I'm going to, it doesn't have a left or a right, it's actually symmetrical, I think. No, it's not symmetrical. I guess the overlap side is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take the top waistband, that'll be the facing, and start matching my notches. Just gonna make it a little bit so I can see a little bit better. Okay, so this is the center. I'll match my center notches first. And pin it, making sure I don't pin the gathering stitches. And then pin the end. This is the center, this is the notch. So this is going to be folded over this way, and I'm going to leave enough for that seam. And do the same thing on the other side. Oops. Okay, now that I have that attached with the notches, I'm gonna go ahead and gather it the same way that I gathered the rest of the, and then distribute my gatherings and then sew along the curve of the waistband. We're sewing along the bottom curve when you attach it. This is my seam. So now I sewed the waistband. And I left a little bit. I didn't sew all the way because this needs to be folded. On the left side, one fold, and on the right side, it's going to be double folded. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the facing for the waistband. Right sides together. and then sew it all the way across the top. Also make sure that you adjust your seam allowance. It's not the same as on the bottom, so just, I think it's about 1/8 of an inch across the top. I sewed the top seam of the waistband, and now I'm going to push the seam to the top and do an understitch all the way across. And we're doing the stitch, it's kind of like doing a top stitching, but we're doing it on the facing only at the very edge, so that it folds nicely like that. My understitching is done, and now we're almost finished. What I'm going to do is I'll fold over I want to sew this as on the flat as possible. So the seam, I'm just marking my seam first. So for the closing, the left side is going to be the longer side and the right side the shorter side. So this would be the left side, and that is the longer side. So I'm going to be folding it. This will be my seam, and this is how much I'm going to fold it. So I'm going to finish the waistband here by folding that in where it's supposed to be folded, and then flip my waistband around and I'm going to catch the fold and fold it all the way, sew it all the way across, and then I'm going to fold my waistband and sew it along that edge. Same thing for the other side. In this case, I'm going to fold it twice. And finish it along the bottom edge. And then flip your waistband like so, and then I'll sew it along the side. So this is what you're going to end up with. Just have to clean it up a little bit. One side is folded over twice, and the left side is folded over once. I think I folded it over too much, so I'm going to undo it and move it just a little bit this way. And once that's done, I can trim this seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I trimmed my seam allowances on the bottom part of the waistband, and now I'm going to fold that over like that and sew right along the edge here. And the same thing for the other side. And since I did my overstitching, make sure you fold it on the correctly and close it here the same way. So I'm done with sewing those corners, and I'm gonna flip them over, make sure I got them right. So now I can trim this little corner right here. I don't trim it all the way to the bottom because I want to make sure I can tuck this part in. So flip it over. And this is what I'm going to end up with. Same thing for the other side. And now I'm going to close the lining, and I'm going to do that by top stitching all the way across here. And you can always tuck this in a little bit if you don't want to see the serge stitches at the very end, like this. And I'm going to put it on over the top because I'm going to be doing top stitching, and that's going to catch my lining. The same thing here. Just going to push that in like that. And I'm going to go ahead and top stitch it all the way across to finish my waistband. Now I've done the top stitching, and I'm just cutting my little tail threads or thread tails, and this is how it should end up. And the final thing is to close it. And I'm going to sew the seam here. So I actually just, so that it's easier, so that I can fold this here like this, I'm going to serge the inner and outer skirts together. I'm just putting a pin there to hold it. I'm not going to use any pins in my serger. Do the same thing for this side. So I'm going to serge here and serge like that. And on the other side as well. Okay, so I serged the underskirt to the upper skirt. And that's okay, that's going to be raw, but this is going to be folded over and covering this. So now I'm going to attach the skirts together at the back. And I'm going to sew it up to the mark right here. So it'll be around here. That's where my mark is. Let me go ahead and do that, and then I will top stitch the closing. So now that I attach the back together, and I'm just gonna go ahead and top stitch the closings. You can do a stitch here and here, or you can go ahead and top stitch it all the way down. Here's the finished skirt, all nice and pressed. And I finished the back with the snaps. And this is how it'll look on the inside. I did a little seam here. And in the future, when I make this skirt, I think I'm gonna line this part of the skirt so that the wrong side of the fabric is not what you see in the front like this. But for this project, I just wanted to make it exactly like the pattern is, just to demonstrate how I made this pattern.